Welcome to Impact. I'm Philip Moore, CEO of Proctors, and the interviewer today. Our guest is Janet Riker, Director of the University Art Museum at the University of Albany. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you for coming.
I'm glad to be here.
So what brings you to the art world? I mean, wow. How are you becoming an artist?
Well, I'm not an artist. I have to tell you that. I'm not an artist, and I never was a working artist. But I was interested in visual art since high school and interested in college and loved being involved with contemporary artists and studied art history as part of my college career and then later in graduate school. So that's sort of that was the path, basically.
And how long have you been doing, not just at U Albany, how long have you been in the arts in some way, shape, or form as administrator?
Seems like forever.
So previous gallery kinds of things?
Previous galleries, previous museums, and I guess when my first job in an art museum was an entry-level job, and I just kind of knew that that was the place I wanted to be and the place I wanted to work in, and so that's
so when you put your head down at night, what nights do you go, wow, that was great? And what happened on the nights that you put your head down saying that?
Well, I think as a director there's a lot of administrative things, and you've got a lot of moving parts that are sort of flying around. So there's I think you have to take a certain satisfaction in that going well, and that, you know, that everything's sort of coming together in a way. Although I always like to say sometimes it's difficult to tell whether things are coming together or falling apart.
Entropy, it's where we're going.
So those are good in some ways, but I think, you know, the larger question is really about you know, where you find the joy in what you do, and for me that's really making things happen that wouldn't have happened, you know, without the University Art Museum and the program we have and the opportunities that we provide to artists, you know.
So talk about the relationship of the student body to the gallery. Do you feel good about it, lousy about it? You know, over 10 years, have students changed? Do they walk in? What's the reaction?
Yeah, they walk in. I think that university and college museums are constantly looking for ways to get more students in the door. You know, when we say we have 18,000 students at the University at Albany, I'd love to have all of them come to the museum at one point. You'd like to have every freshman class, you know, be introduced to the museum. So I think that, you know, it's something that you're always working toward, finding new ways to get students through the door. I think one way that's been successful is through classes. Teachers bringing them to the museum for a visit or a talk by me or a curator, or a separate classroom project, and that's kind of been revealing that you can have not just art classes come or art history classes come, but that you'll have a creative writing class come that will use an exhibition for the genesis of a project, a writing project, or you'll have a Portuguese language class come and the professor will just ask students to use their language skills to talk about what they see and how they feel about the art that surrounds them. So I think there's lots of different ways that we can interact with students through the curriculum, you know, because I think the harder thing is to get them to see the museum as a leisure time activity the way kind of I do.
Has that changed over a decade?
I don't think it's changed over a decade, and I have to admit, when I was an undergraduate, there were a lot of cultural and educational opportunities that I let fly by because I was engaged in other activities.
I was,
I don't.
No, I get it. I was involved in the art center in my college, and we had an exhibit of Chris Burdick. Is it Chris Burdick, the man who did the?
Chris Burden?
No, Burdick. I'm sure. Chris may not be right.
Oh.
He did living exhibits. You know, he's the guy that that shot himself in his arm as one of his exhibits and crawled over glass. Chris Burden. I had the name wrong. Yeah, and we had Chris there, and it was, you know, remarkable.
That's
event.
amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was just remarkable, but nobody came. It was just, I mean, you know, I'm helping host, and it was tough.
It is tough, but I hope there are a lot of people who are kicking themselves, a lot of adults who are kicking themselves now for the opportunity to have heard Chris Burton talk and missed it. So.
Yeah, he did something that he did at MoMA finally, a similar thing. He sat in a room for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Quiet. And some people left screaming.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fabulous.
Yeah, yeah.
Money. How is this? Everybody's getting cut in the state. SUNY's getting cut. How does it affect you?
Well, it's always a challenge, I think, and you know, over the 10 years that I've been there, we've really tried to sort of diversify our income sources, and we've been successful to some extent, and that helps, especially when times are lean and budgets are being cut, you know, across the board in the state and in the state agencies. I think there are foundations. We go to more. I think at one time, like a lot of things at the university, it was wholly self-funded. But now units have to be entrepreneurial. They have to go out and look for foundation support. They have to look for corporate support, individual support. The museum's been successful in setting up several endowment funds, which will kind of assure that certain programs have a continuing source of revenue in the future. So.
Are you giving some independence in that regard, or does it all have to go through, you know, the scholarship and university development office and that kind of thing?
I am given independence, but I mean, we always make sure that we're not, you know, crossing paths or stepping on toes, and that, and I think there's lots of value to working closely with them, because, you know, people who are passionate about art aren't necessarily people who graduated as artists or art historians. They are often lawyers or business people, entrepreneurs who have come to their love of art later in life. And so it's helpful to have a university development office that can help you identify those people. You know, one of the largest collectors of contemporary arts is Steve Martin.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Right. So you feel okay in this financial regard? You guys are doing okay.
You never feel. You're always working, and I think it's always a challenge, and I think it's keep moving. I
read a great quote recently that applies to our work perfectly, and it was democracy. It was about democracy. Democracy is like riding a bicycle. If you stop pedaling, you fall over.
That's true. I think probably there's fundraising as well like that.
Yeah, arts are like bike riding.
Right, but you know, I think when I think of fundraising, I often think that, you know, it's a real part of it is marketing, and part of it is sharing your passion for what you do and the significance you see in your efforts and your accomplishments with other people, and so. You know, those are positive things
are all good
to
things.
do.
Yeah, exactly. You've been here, you know, again, 10 years, 9 years. How do you see the regional art scene, the artists in the region? Changes? Anything different?
Yeah, I think there are changes. I think, you know, it's an interesting art scene. I came from Brooklyn, which was, you know, such a vibrant art scene, and I sort of had been there for almost 15 years and watched that develop and change over time. I think, as you know, we struggle with geography in terms of you know, kind of bringing together the art scene of the capital region, and I think that's difficult because you don't. You know, a lot of it depends on critical mass, and I think we have a vibrant art scene, but it's spread across, you know, a geographic region that's sometimes hard to traverse for people.
But how do you see that as it affects being an artist in this region? I mean, is the environment better, worse, different? I mean, what do you think the last decade has been in terms of the environment?
I think there's more. I think it's been healthy. There's been more attention. I think things like the MOHU efforts, I think that kind of attention is good for artists. I think that artists will find places to show their work. They'll find ways to share their work, whether those are small not-for-profit spaces or restaurants or open studios. I think artists it's such a remarkable drive to do their work and often to share their work that I think that sort of, that transcends geography and money issues. That transcends a lot. I think the audience is kind of a different story. To bring that audience, to connect those two parts of the puzzle is sometimes a challenge.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We play it all every day.
We do.
So, what's up for the 2013? What should our audience know and look for at the gallery?
We're excited. We're opening a group show in February that is called Day After Day, The Diaristic Impulse, and it's one of our thematic shows. We do two kinds of exhibitions. We do solo shows for one artist, or we do our thematic group exhibition. So Day After Day is an investigation of artists who feel the need, some might say obsession, to record day-to-day events. And they do this in all kinds of media, and all from paintings and drawings to video. And so I think it's a wonderful sort of exploration of that urge, which is, I think a lot of people have and a lot of people are interested in. So.
Oh, it sounds fabulous. Have you seen the film Smoke?
Oh, yes, of course.
I love those photographs he took every day in the front of his little shop.
Absolutely,
it was just wonderful.
Absolutely. So.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
It was a pleasure, Philip.
Janet Riker has been our guest from the University Galleries at the University of Albany. This is Philip Morris for Impact. Thank you for joining us. Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.